If Iran doesn't accept a nuclear deal, we are heading for war. Not maybe, not possibly, war. Shalom from Israel. I am Hanania Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. This week, the clock started ticking, and nobody seems to understand how serious this is. Look, Trump and Netanyahu met and laid the cards on the table this week. Iran either dismantles its nuclear program completely, or the next chapter will be written in fire and blood. Netanyahu said it clearly. The only deal that works is the Libya model. And for those who forgot what that means, let me remind you. In 2003, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, who is no longer with us, gave up his entire nuclear program under US supervision. Facilities destroyed, equipment gone, no enrichment, no games. That's the only deal worth discussing. But will Iran accept that? Absolutely not. Why? Because this isn't just politics for them. It's religion, it's destiny. I'm about to explain also all about the Shia Islamic end times prophecy, because there's a lot of focus on the biblical one. I want to also share about theirs. But look, Iran is not run by politicians. It's run by Shia fanatics like the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, who believe that they are on a divine mission to usher in the apocalypse, basically. You need to understand this if you want to understand what comes next. But before we continue, if you want to stand with Israel, especially in these critical times, then go shop and bless Israel on the IsraelStore.com. It's more than a store. It's a weapon against hate. Here's what I believe about to happen. On Saturday, the US and Iranian delegations will meet in Oman. Trump says these will be direct talks. He said that in front of Prime Minister Netanyahu when they met this week. By the way, it's their second meeting since Trump took office, so looks like things are becoming more and more serious. And I think it also shows this strong relationship between Netanyahu and Trump. But Iran says that these negotiations will be indirect. That alone tells you something. Iran is playing its usual double game. Look, if Iran agrees to dismantle their nuclear weapons program completely, we'll avoid war for now. But if Iran stalls, lies, and rejects the deal, and I believe they will, the world needs to prepare, because war will follow, and I believe Israel will also strike. America might join, and if we get to that, the region is going to explode. But here's where things get deeper, more dangerous, and more spiritual than most people realize. This is not just a geopolitical crisis. It's a prophetic collision. Most people don't know this, but hear me out. The Shia Muslims, like the Iranian regime, like Hezbollah, they're different from the Sunni, who are the majority in the Muslim religion. But the Shia Muslims are also waiting for the end times. Just like the Christians, just like the Jews, but very different. Their version, it's terrifying for some. The Iranian regime believes that they believe in the coming of a figure called Mahdi, or the 12th Imam. According to Shia theology, the Mahdi has been in occultation, hidden by Allah, and will return in the last days to establish a global Islamic caliphate. But here's the part that should scare everyone. They believe his return will be triggered by global chaos, destruction, and war. That's why Iran doesn't fear conflict. They welcome it. I mean, they know that they're weaker than the West. They know that they're really not doing good, especially with the lack of support among the Iranian people, but they still believe in all these fundamentals. They believe war speeds up the return of their savior. They literally believe the bloodier the war gets, the closer the Mahdi comes. And again, I'm not saying this to slander any faith or religion. This is merely for education purposes and my opinion only. But look, while the West thinks nukes are for deterrence, Iran uses them as tools, or wishes to use them as tools to fulfill some divine prophecy. And let me say that again. They're not building a bomb to protect themselves, because nobody has ever threatened to destroy or annihilate Iran. On the contrary, they were actually the ones doing that to Israel. They're building a bomb because they think that by destroying all those who oppose their ideology, they're bringing about, or should I say, bringing closer the era they believe their messianic era. It's really not similar, but the Christians believe in a rule by the Messiah here on earth, and the Shia Muslims believe in that too, except that they are waiting for someone else, the 12th Imam, as I talked about it with you. That ideology has definitely helped fuel more opposition to Israel. If you need more proof, then go and read speeches of former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. They view Israel as the biggest threat to ushering that era, the greatest obstacle to their one world order rule. The former Iranian president used to pray, listen, he used to pray at the UN for the return of the Mahdi and believed it was his mission to prepare the world for that day, through bloodshed. So when Netanyahu says Iran must be stopped, he's not trying to avoid war. He's trying to prevent a global religious explosion. And all those who stand against Israel in the West don't realize how big of a problem and a mistake they're doing, standing up to the one democracy in the Middle East that is standing up to radicalism. Now, let's compare that to Christian prophecy. Not that there is a lot to compare here, but Christians believe in the return of Jesus, but not to start a war. He comes after the chaos to put an end to it. According to Christianity, the Messiah returns to destroy the armies of the Antichrist, not to create them. In the end times, the world is ruled by evil, but the Messiah returns to establish righteousness, not domination. There is no global caliphate. There is no war for the sake of war. It's a rescue mission, not an empire expansion. But here's what's fascinating, because the biblical prophecy says a massive coalition will rise up against Israel, a military alliance from the north and east. It names Persia, today's Iran, along with nations like Turkey, Libya, and others, maybe Russia and China. We don't really know. It's all assumptions here, but that's Ezekiel 38. Now look at what's actually happening, what we see happening. Iran is forming deep alliances with Russia and China. That's not an assumption, it's happening. Iran still influences militias in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. Iran has also smuggled weapons in the past into Gaza and Judea and Samaria. We also see Turkey cozying up to Damascus and building bases near Israel's borders. And that's huge. Turkey's army, listen to this, is reportedly in Syria now as well. Reports said that the Israelis actually negotiated with the Turks on terms in Syria in order to avoid direct confrontation between the army of Turkey and the Israel Defense Forces. Now, why this is dramatic? In Isaiah 17, verse 1, the Bible says, "Behold, Damascus will cease to be a city and become a heap of ruins." This has never fully happened in history, not even during ancient wars and modern ones. Damascus is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, but its time is running out according to the Bible. Why does this matter today? Because we see today that Turkey is also heavily involved in Syria after the fall of Assad, who became Erdogan's rival. Damascus is Iran's weapons highway, or at least used to be, until Assad fell. Turkey, listen to this, has one of the most powerful armies in the Middle East, arguably the largest army in the Middle East. It is the second largest army in NATO. So when we hear that Turkey is now in Syria, which means that Turkey could potentially be on Israel's borders, that can mean a threat, especially with a dictator like Erdogan, whose biggest dream is to re-establish the Ottoman Empire, which also included Israel and was one of the biggest empires in the history of the world. But if war breaks, if Turkey uses Syria as a launchpad in an all-out confrontation, Damascus could be obliterated overnight. And we could see an all-out war, which is obviously not something that anyone in Israel wishes to see. We don't want wars, even though I'm speaking with you about wars. I'll explain why I'm doing that, but it's now within a theory, of course. Nothing is certain, but it's definitely worth watching out. Because the Bible told us thousands of years ago that Damascus will become a heap of ruins. The map is forming, the players are moving, the war is no longer, this big war is no longer a distant vision. It could as well be becoming a military strategy. And here's the really chilling part, in my opinion. The Shia Mahdi prophecies and Christian end times prophecies are heading towards the same battlefield, but from opposite directions, opposite sides. The Islamic regime wants the Mahdi to rise in the chaos. Christians believe that the Messiah will actually come to return to stop it. The Jews believe that the Messiah will come, not return, because Jews don't believe that the Messiah has come yet. So what happens if Iran walks out of the talks this weekend? What happens if they refuse the Libya model? Let me be straightforward. Israel will have no choice but to strike. And remember what I said earlier. We have Prime Minister Netanyahu until 2026. And then Israel goes to elections. Something big might happen before that. We've done it before. We've hit Iraq's nuclear reactor in 1981. We've hit Syria's in 2007. And we will hit Iran if we must. But this time, it won't be one strike. This time, it could trigger a regional war. Iran will try to activate all of its proxies that are still left. Perhaps the remains of Hezbollah in Lebanon, in Israel's north, the Houthis in Yemen will fire missiles at Eilat and other parts of the country. Iraq's militias will target potentially American bases. And Hamas will fire everything they've got, as long as they still have anything left. Look, October 7th was a horrible day, but a battle like this could be devastating for our region. And let me say this, in case you didn't know, war is bad. I don't advocate for war. I don't stand for all the warmongers. All I'm saying is that it's important to know what's happening around us. And when we see all these pieces of the puzzle coming together, it's definitely worth matching this with the biblical sacred text that we have. Because here in the Middle East, it looks like we're standing on the edge of the potential outbreak of World War III, especially with the trade war that is now escalating between the United States and China. It all comes together because Iran depends on China, Iran, Russia. Look, everything that we see in the Middle East, it's all coming together. And it's not looking good unless it is stopped. And if we wait, we'll pay a heavier price. October 7th taught us that we cannot wait until we are surprised. We must eliminate any surprise when it's still in its so-called wraps. Now, let me say this very clearly. The Iranian regime is not irrational. They're deadly rational according to their own twisted ideology. They believe martyrdom is power. They believe nukes are the key to final victory. And that's a problem. If we don't stop them, Israelis, Arabs, and Iranian people will suffer. We have to unite and have a coalition that will stand up to this. That's one of the reasons we saw the Abraham Accords coming to life. That's why Saudi Arabia hinted before October 7th that it is interested in peace with Israel. But here's the hope. Ezekiel 38, the chapter that points to parts of the end times, ends not with Israel's destruction, but with Israel's deliverance. It says that when nations rise against Israel, God himself will fight for his people with fire, with hail, with shaking, and the world will know that he is the Lord. Iran may have missiles, Iran may have terror proxies, but Israel has the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he never misses. So if Iran refuses to dismantle their nuclear program, they should prepare to pay the price for it, because President Trump is done playing games. And we will not wait for a second Holocaust, especially not from an enemy that publicly states its intentions to destroy us and to erase Israel from the map. We will not ask for permission. We will not sit on our hands, because that's what survival looks like when you live in a sea of hate. We have to stand up for ourselves, because standing up for Israel is standing up for our civilization. Subscribe to my channel right now if you want to get real updates, not filtered lies from the mainstream media. Until next time, I'm